Hey everyone, welcome back to the Money Level Show where we think, act, and prosper. And as you can see from the title, was I wrong about Elon Musk and DOGE? And so I've had multiple guests come on the show to talk about what are the main things that can be reduced in government and what things are likely not to be touched. We've talked about the four pillars that are a massive amount of government deficits and such and government spending and how DOGE may not be able to make any progress there. So we're going to dive into a few different perspectives here today. I do not like to be in an echo chamber. I like to get to the truth. And so that's what we're going to look at today. So first, we're going to go over to a recent press conference with Elon Musk and President Trump. And we're going to see what they had to say about what was happening when they started to uncover the alleged fraud that they were seeing. So let's go ahead and start there. All right, here we go.
Be signing a very important deal today. It's DOGE, and I'm going to ask Elon to tell you a little bit about it and some of the things that we found, which are shocking. Billions and billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse. And I think it's very important. And that's one of the reasons I got elected. I said, we're going to do that. Nobody had any idea it was that bad, that sick, and that corrupt. And it seems hard to believe that judges want to try and stop us from looking for corruption, especially when we found hundreds of millions of dollars worth, much more than that, in just a short period of time. And we want to weed out the corruption. And it seems hard to believe that a judge could say, we don't want you to do that. Well, so maybe we have to look at the judges, because that's a very serious, I think it's a very serious violation. I'll ask Elon Musk to say a few words, and we'll take some questions. Elon, go ahead.
Sure.
Okay, let's go ahead and skip that.
So at a high level, if you say what is the goal of DOGE, and I think a significant part of the presidency is to restore democracy. This may seem like, well, are we in a democracy? Well, if you don't have a feedback loop, FAX, we would have to, if you sorry. So, tell you, gravitas can be difficult sometimes. If there's not a good feedback loop from the people to the government, and if you have rule of the bureaucrat, if the bureaucracy is in charge, and then what meaning does democracy actually have? If the people cannot vote and have their will be decided by their elected representatives in the form of the president and the Senate and the House, then we don't live in a democracy, we live in a bureaucracy. So it's incredibly important that we close that feedback loop, we fix that feedback loop, and that the public's elected representatives, the president, the House, and the Senate, decide what happens, as opposed to a large unelected bureaucracy. This is not to say that there are good people who are in the federal bureaucracy, but you can't have an autonomous federal bureaucracy. You have to have one that is responsive to the people. That's the whole point of a democracy. And if you looked at if you looked at the founders today and said, what do you think of the way things have turned out? Which is shocking, because we spend a lot of money on defense. But if that just keeps going, we're essentially going to bankrupt the country. So what I really want to say is, like, it's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential. It's essential for America to remain solvent as a country, and it's essential for America to have the resources necessary to provide things to its citizens and not simply be servicing vast amounts of debt.
And also, could you mention some of the things that your team has found, some of the crazy numbers, including the woman that walked away with about 30 million,
right,
et cetera?
Well, we do find it sort of rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position, which is what happened at USAID. We're just curious as to where it came from. Maybe they're very good at investing, in which case we should take their investment advice, perhaps. But just there seems to be mysteriously they get wealthy. We don't know why. Where does it come from? And I think the reality is that they're getting wealthy at the taxpayer expense. That's the honest.
I know part of it is insider trading. We all know Nancy Pelosi. She got them trades. She got them fire trades. You all be sure to check out Autopilot so that you can check out which trades she's making. I was able to get in on one of the medical AI plays that she was in, and went from about $30-something to about $98, something like that. But yeah, be sure to go check that out. Nancy Pelosi, she's a pretty good trader, you all.
That's truth of it. So, we're looking at, say, we just if you look at say Treasury, for example, basic controls that should be in place, that are in place in any company, such as making sure that any given payment has a payment categorization code, that there is a comment field that describes the payment, and that if a payment is on the do not pay list, that you don't actually pay it. None of those things are true currently. So the reason that departments can't pass audits is because the payments don't have a categorization code. It's like just a massive number of blank checks just flying out the building. So you can't reconcile blank checks. You've got comment fields that are also blank, so you don't know why the payment was made. And then we've got this truly absurd, a do not pay list, which can take up to a year for an organization to get on a do not pay list. And this, we're talking about terrorist organizations, we're talking about known fraudsters, known aspects of waste, known things that do not match any congressional appropriation, can take up to a year to get on the list, and even once on the list is not used. It's mind-blowing. So what we're talking about here.
Hang on, so he's saying that whenever a company or organization or whatnot gets on the do not pay list, it takes them a year to get on the do not pay list. So let's say if someone was in charge of, like, okay, you're misusing government funds, you're going on a do not pay list. That takes a year for that organization to get on the do not pay list. And so I guess what Elon is saying is that those companies are still receiving payments in the midst of that time frame. Let's hear what else he has to say.
Here, we're really just talking about adding common sense controls that should be present, that haven't been present. So you say, like, well, how could such a thing arise? That seems crazy. When you understand that really everything is geared towards complaint minimization, so then you understand the motivations. So if people receive money, they don't complain, obviously. But if people don't receive money, they do complain. And the fraudsters complain the loudest and the fastest. So then when you understand that, then it makes sense. Oh, that's why everything they approve all the payments at Treasury. Because if you approve all the payments, you don't get complaints. But now we're saying that, no, actually, we are going to complain. If money is spent badly, if your taxpayer dollars are not spent in a sensible and frugal manner, then that's not okay. Your tax dollars need to be spent wisely on things that matter to the people. I mean, these things, like, it's just common sense. It's not draconian or radical, I think. It's really just saying, let's look at each of these expenditures and say, is this actually in the best interest of the people? And if it is, it's approved. If it's not, we should think about it.
All right, so he goes on for, another 23 minutes. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but Elon goes on to say, hey, we're paying Social Security payments to someone who's living 150 years old. He goes on to say that we've paid tens of millions to a organization that was supposed to be on a do not pay list, and that money continued to go to that organization and such. And so those are just a couple of examples that he mentions in that particular press conference. Now, I'm all for reducing government spending, ensuring that our taxpayer dollars are being spent responsibly, and eliminating fraud in government spending. Because it's like a massive um, a massive uh, organization, right? A massive government, right? And you have all these moving parts, and not everyone can keep tabs on everything. And then people get away with stuff, right? And so I don't think that there's no fraud in the government, but some of the things that I'm also seeing some different perspectives. And so we're going to get to some different perspectives on that are kind of challenging Elon on his credibility with Doge and what Doge is actually reporting. And so I'm not going to get into the conspiracies of if he's, I don't even want to call them conspiracies. I haven't really looked into them, but if he's you know, funding his own pockets through government subsidies, which we know that he was known to do. And allegedly, he just received a recent contract. I have not looked in that to verify that, but he's receiving support through SpaceX and such, and while he's eliminating spending on the other side. And so, let's go ahead and look over here first. All right, so first we're going to look at the national debt clock and just look at what are they reporting that Doge is actually saving. All right, so we looked at this before. Before Doge was at about 40 million. Now it's at about 40 trillion, 40, not 40 trillion, 40 billion. Now it's at 115 billion. Okay, so the number has been climbing up on the amount of savings that Doge is reporting that they have saved. Okay, obviously, we're still at a $7 trillion spending and a $2 trillion deficit, but it seems like there's some progress being made. Okay, and then here's the four pillars that I've mentioned before: Medicare, 1.6 trillion; Social Security, almost 1.5 trillion; defense, about 900 billion; and then interest expense on our debt, which is 1 trillion. So these make up a significant percentage of our spending and such. And so Doge is alleging that they've saved 115 billion so far. Now, it's important to note that Trump has already come out saying that some of the Doge savings could go directly to Americans. So we'll see if this happens. But they were talking about potentially, $5,000 to every tax-paying American that Doge savings could go to, and then 20% of Doge savings would go towards the national debt. That's what he came out and said recently. So it would be interesting because 20% of Doge savings, that's only what, 25 trillion. 25 billion. I'm getting the numbers right. These numbers are so big now. 25 billion. That's not going to reduce the national debt very much. Okay. And I know that I think he was talking about in 2026, like if Elon is able to get to his target of at least 1 trillion, cutting 1 trillion of spending, then that would be more significant. If you got the 2 trillion, 20% of 2 trillion, that's 400 billion. And that could go towards the national, paying down the national debt or whatnot. So, it seems like they're trying to reduce the amount of spending while trying to get us to a solvent situation. This is a massive task. I appreciate the heart to want to do this, but there are some other perspectives that we're about to get into that kind of challenge what they're saying. So let's look at it. All right. So this was a chart put out by Jessica Riedel, formerly known as Brian Riedel. Whoever this person is, I guess they went through some type of change or whatever. But in this particular chart, it shows that what happened to those budget surpluses under Clinton. So in the 2000s, we had a budget surplus of 2.3% of GDP. And then in 2024, we have a budget deficit of 6.3% of GDP. So that surplus has been long gone for a long time. And so when we look at the numbers since the revenues have fell 3% of GDP. And a lot of this changed between the 2000 election. I mean, you had the dot-com bust, which that hurt a lot of tax revenues. I mean, we had the global financial crisis and such, and so the tax revenues were a lot lower. And so going into the turn of this century, tax revenues started declining. Then you had an increase in Social Security, health, and health entitlements, and so you had a 3.7% increase in GDP from these. Other mandatory spending, 1.11% of GDP, non-defense, 0.2%, 0.1% defense, and then almost 1% in net interest. And so spending jumped 5.7% of GDP. So we see that we're clearly in a different situation now. And so, yeah. And then so this other person that I've been following shared this tweet. Okay. 9 years ago, budget hawks found that only a handful of Social Security benefits were going to deceased people. So we hear there was this tweet that Elon put out that multiple payments of Social Security was going to people aged 150 and 120 and up and such, and that it was pretty much fraud. And so this person is saying that 9 years ago that there were only a handful of Social Security benefits going to deceased people. We should work to end this fraud, but it won't meaningfully improve solvency. So this was from the organization that did the study, which we're going to go to their site and read it. But stop payments to 112-year-olds, that was about 200,000. Stop payments to deceased was 15 million. And then stop all improper payments, 5 billion. And then the amount needed for Social Security solvency was 150 billion. Okay, so in this particular article from 2016, they started to study would reducing fraud make Social Security solvent. And so this was the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. It says at the 7th Republican presidential debate, Donald Trump stated that he would save Social Security by reducing its tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse, pointing to the fact that there are in Social Security right now thousands and thousands of people that are over 106 years old that don't exist. While reducing fraud is a noble goal, like I mentioned earlier, the savings are a tiny fraction of all Social Security spending. Any benefit payments to thousands of beneficiaries would barely move the needle on solvency. There would need to be almost 10 million ineligible 106-year-olds in order to save Social Security solely by ending fraudulent, mistaken payments. Moreover, Mr. Trump's own estimate of thousands of beneficiaries over the age of 106 who do not exist is likely a significant overestimate. According to a 2013 report by the Social Security Administration's Inspector General, there were just over 1,500 deceased individuals still receiving benefits in total, including many below the age of 106 and accounting for about 15 million in additional improper benefits. A 2015 report did find 6.5 million active Social Security numbers for people over the age of 112, but only 13 of them were being used to receive benefits. So out of 6.5 million, 13 of them were being used to receive benefits. A much bigger fraudulent use of the remaining numbers is to contribute to payroll taxes into the system, not to collect benefits from it. A situation that applied to almost 67,000 of the numbers. Okay, so this data suggests the group Mr. Trump is referencing is between 13 and 1,500 recipients in size and is therefore costing the system between $200,000 and $15 million annually. To put that in context, total benefits this year will exceed $900 billion, meaning that stopping all of these payments will reduce program costs by between 0.00002 and 0.002%. Even if Social Security Administration could somehow eliminate all improper payments estimated by SSA at about $5 billion per year, which is likely impossible, it would only reduce the costs by at most 0.6%. And so by comparison, the Social Security trustees estimate restoring solvency by solely reducing benefits would require an immediate 16.4% cut, an equivalent of reducing Social Security benefits by about $150 billion. So as we can see, this study came out back in 2016 from the Committee for a Responsible Budget. I mean, it's given an alternative perspective as to what DOGE is claiming they are finding. And so I don't know, you all. Like, I mean, there's some folks on X that are, I guess, fact checking what DOGE is doing. And they're saying that there's no way DOGE is able to do this. And not like they're not no way that the numbers just don't make sense. That's what they're communicating. The numbers don't make sense. So there's another chart I'm going to share here. And whether you believe it's credible or not, NPR analysis found that it is of its verifiable work completed so far, DOGE has cut just $2 billion in spending, less than 300 of last year's fiscal federal spending. So at this time, when this tweet came out, DOGE's claim of estimated overall savings, $55 billion. Savings initially claimed from the subset of terminated contracts, $16.5 billion. So it's saying, okay, there's a discrepancy there. Savings after fixing a data entry error, $8.5 billion. Savings from contracts that haven't been terminated yet, $6.5 billion. Estimated savings from contracts, NPR confirmed as canceled, $2 billion. So I guess those that were actually canceled was $2 billion. The contracts that haven't been terminated yet is $6.5 billion. And so I don't know, that there's just some discrepancies in what DOGE is reporting and what the national debt clock is saying, as well as between what people on X that are challenging DOGE and with alternative information. It's just pretty interesting, y'all. So I'd love to hear what you all think, because I'm just trying to get to the bottom, get to the truth. Ultimately, what's going on, JT? Good to see you, buddy. JT Coin Rings. Be sure to go check them out, you all. So, I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this, right? Somebody here is lying. Okay, is it Elon Musk and DOGE? I mean, we can go. Let's go to Elon Musk's page real quick, because this is what he recently reported from his tweet about Social Security payments. So this was Elon's tweet. Okay. Elon saying that according to the Social Security database, these are the numbers of people in each age bucket with the death field set to false. So he's saying that there's people in these age categories within the Social Security system. and so which is pretty interesting because I mean Social Security wasn't even around and 360 or 369 years ago. I mean, 240 years ago, Social Security wasn't around. I mean, that didn't start until the 1930s or 40s, right? Um, and so that's pretty interesting. So this is some of the stuff that Elon Musk and Doge is reporting. Some of the um, other things that they've reported. Uh, some people are upset because they're not putting some of this information on their website, but they are tweeting about it or Xing about it, I guess, however you say it. And so here, incredible job by U.S. Treasury in saving American taxpayers 1.9 billion. And so here, if we look at this, um, okay, so there's some procurement numbers here. Reason for modification: terminate for complete convenience. Date signed. Um, Period of performance: start date. Last date to order. So I guess they were supposed to start last year. Um, Action obligation total. Okay, estimate order value 1.9 billion. I mean, this looks like it was a contract. I don't know if the contract actually got off the ground or whatnot. It's not saying. Um, I mean, here this isn't really. I mean, it's just saying 1.9 billion. But I don't see where it's saying, okay, how much was paid out so far. I mean, because usually you have to start the work on a contract to even get this payment or to get some of this payment, and it looks like the contract was over 7 years here from 2024 to 2031. Maybe it was some construction contract. Who knows? Okay, so this is, let's see, contracted office, agency name, IRS, funding office name, IRS, or whatever. I don't know what this was particularly about, but I mean, it doesn't really give a lot of information. It just says that there's 1.9 billion on there. Let's see. Okay, so we have been working to identify waste, fraud, and abuse in the connection to the effort. The IRS rescinded a previously planned 1.9 billion contract and has committed itself to be focused and intentional with taxpayer dollars. Okay, so yes, so I was correct. So they did not. Um, so it says that they saved the American taxpayers 1.9 billion, but in reality, this money wasn't paid out yet. But they did save it, I guess, because it was going to be spent anyway. But it doesn't impact the current state of affairs. So, um, yeah, I mean, then you have some more of these. Like, I guess this one was started in 2022, and it was set to end the end of last month. Um, it was an $8 million contract. The agency contracting officer mistakenly wrote 8 billion instead of 8 million when logging this into the DOGE discovered this error. DOGE has already used to correct 8 million in its calculations. Okay, so I mean this here says 8 million. Um, but Elon is saying, DOGE is saying that it's 8 billion and that they've already corrected it. So not really giving any, it's not showing the before and after here. So I don't know you all. I don't know how accurate this stuff is. All I know is some folks are challenging what they're saying. So do your own due diligence. I mean, at the end of the day, um, if they're saving the government money, cool. I mean, it sounds like Trump wants to go cut some Americans some checks like he did during COVID. So I'm happy to receive a $5,000 check. If I can go buy some gold or something with that. But be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you think that this is Is this real? Are they actually saving the government money? Is this for show? Yeah, I'd just love to hear your thoughts. All right, you all. Well, take care, and you all have a blessed